I'd like to call the meeting to order. The Board of Leavenworth County Commission would like to invite everyone to stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to start with a moment of silence. You might remember police officers and for their week to honor police officers. Oh, okay.
Well, I just thought that would make it easier
Oh, of course.
for you. I mean, that's
Thank you. We'll start roll call. Commissioner Stevens is absent. Commissioner Shemke is present. Commissioner Smith is here. Commissioner Cause is here. And Commissioner Culberson is present. We'll open up public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to speak, come forward. Please state your name.
Morning, Commission. Joe Herring, Herring Surveying, 315 North Fifth Street. Had a work session last week. I think that Commissioner Smith brought up a project that wasn't heard by the board for Don Wilming. Don Wilming heard of that discussion, contacted me, asked me to come up here today since the meeting was held Monday, not Wednesday, and asked that that get put back on the agenda as submitted. And I know Dave mentioned maybe that has to go back in front of the Planning Commission. He wishes not to do that. He would like to bring the preliminary plat as submitted, and if there's any significant changes or even minor changes, he would like that addressed on the final plat if it gets to go forward.
I believe what we voted on was a final plat, correct?
It went all the way. It went all the way through.
It went all the way through.
Yeah.
I think it went all the way through planning and zoning.
Yeah.
Well, the preliminary plat was an interior road design and a minor major subdivision would only submit a preliminary first.
Okay.
But I didn't know if that preliminary came to you
But I
because
don't
it
think
was
the preliminaries
behind.
would come to the board. Is that correct?
I don't, typically preliminary plats do not even come to the board, so.
It went through planning and planning zoning,
But-
and when the final plat came to the board.
That's what I was.
And he wishes to have his plat reheard, his chance to speak to the board or have a representative speak to the board on his behalf and explaining the issues that were between staff and his design, and would like a chance to address them to you, this Board of County Commissioners instead of the previous. So,
What statutes do we have to follow on this?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I'd like the opportunity to look at what steps procedurally would be needed to bring this matter before you, if you so choose, in order that it actually have some finality or validity. In that case, I want to make sure that all notice requirements are considered and taken care of first. If it's the board's desire to have this matter reheard, I'll work with Mr. Joseph and get this matter back to you.
I don't know if the commissioners are aware of this. There was a plat that came forward. Was there a public hearing or wasn't a public hearing? It was just, the man was denied his due process. He was not allowed to explain his plat or talk about his plat, and just took a vote right off the bat.
I think it had went through planning and zoning, and it had been voted down at planning and zoning, and then it came up here, and I think I recall the comment specifically was from one of the commissioners that there was no point in the gentleman talking because they had already made up their mind, and then they voted.
That's the way I remember it.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure that was the comment, and then the commission voted. But we'll look into it and make sure that procedurally it's handled correctly, because once the board hears it and votes on it, there's a process that has to be followed. I'm not sure you can just bring it back up without going back through planning and zoning, but the county council will review that and make sure.
And again, Commissioners, I'm not intending to delay this matter. It's just, I think it'd be an unfortunate event if we were to bring this matter back up, conduct another vote on the matter, and then find that that vote had a procedural error that rendered it moot.
Well, and I was going to suggest before we have him waste his time or spend time, when it was brought up earlier, it was said that the only reason it was voted down was because the dead-end road was too long, so I did some more homework on it to see if that was the case, and that's not the only reason that it was voted down. Then I thought, well, maybe it's because it was a dead-end road on a non-grid line, because, we don't like dead-end roads if they're on a grid line. If it would have been a through street, maybe that would make a difference, but another issue is it's a 2.5 acre lot subdivision out in the middle of the county, and so before we address or have him spend his time, I think we as the board need to address with staff what we want to see them, what direction we want them to go, because it kind of reflects back on the comprehensive plan and the master plan. It's not just that it was a long dead-end road, it's mostly that it was a 2.5 acre lot subdivision out in the middle of the county. So before we just have him come back in and then say no again, I think we need to make some decisions on this, maybe even wait till the comp plan is finished, if it comes out the way we want it to, because the issue's not just that it was a long dead-end street. So it's more that it was a small lot subdivision out in the middle of the county, where we've directed staff that we don't want to see that. If it's in a 5 acre zone, I take too long?
Is that my 5 minutes?
So I think we need to address that before we have him come in and waste his time again. And if we decide, that subdivision should have been passed, then have him come up. But
It should have been passed, it should have been heard, probably, is more.
That's
Yeah,
right.
it should have been. He should have had his right to speak.
right.
Right, allowing him the opportunity to even speak to the Board of County Commissioners, I
Yeah,
think was.
which I agree
was a
with, but
misstep.
before, and that's my point, is before he comes up and speaks and then we just say no again,
Right.
we need to address the issues
But
that
at the
cause
same
it to not
time, we
pass
said
staff.
yes to a 2.5 acre tract on the northern part of the county.
Totally agree. That's what I'm talking about.
And it was
We
the
need to
same
be
time.
consistent and we need to direct staff, because I don't like going against staff recommendations, so we need to have staff change the rules then if that's what we want to do. So that's all I'm saying, is
Right.
we need to let them know, the staff.
But why
and
was
the
it
planning
okay
board.
to pass a 2.5 acre tract, or,
I totally agree. Yeah,
is it the Soxies, I believe?
yeah.
And it was a good plat. I mean,
Yeah.
it preserved the agriculture.
Yeah, because I'd like to see, our planning department take extra steps to figure out how they can help people do something like this instead of figure out ways that they can't do something like this.
And-
So if we need to change policy to make that happen so that staff doesn't recommend against what we think makes common sense, then we need to change policy, is
I
what I'm
believe
saying
this,
before we address
2.5
this again.
acre that was approved, was on gravel, correct?
I don't know.
Was that on
The
gravel?
Soxy Farm?
Yeah, was it
It
on
was on
gravel?
gravel, but it did not have an interior road.
Well, I understand, but it's still 2.5 acre tract.
Right, and this
This
property
here would be
is,
2.5 acre tracts on a hard surface road.
and it's zoned 2.5 acres, so there was no rezone or anything like the other requests that came before you before.
I think there were other challenges with it, which
There were
probably
challenges.
need, if the board wants to hear it again, I think it'd be best to have the plat in front of you,
Because
so you
bottom
knew
line-
exactly what the
Well, that's
issues were.
true.
So-
That's been so long ago since I looked at the
He's
plat.
just asking that he gets his chance
To speak.
to have someone present the plat to the Board of County Commissioners in the manner it should have been.
What would
And I
you
think the
say?
consensus here was we want to hear, staff is going to tell us what procedurally we can
Right.
and can't do in that matter.
Well, and the other
Right.
thing is, missing another build season, a chance to build the road this year is important, so timing is kind of pressing on this a little bit.
And the bottom line to me is we need to weigh out, are the rules that we've set in place for policy prohibiting us to allow $1 billion, this is 20 lots, and these are going to be $500,000 houses. So you're going to turn away $1 billion in ad valorem tax revenue?
Well, I
That's
don't.
what I think the bottom line
I think you gotta be careful about saying $1 billion in ad valorem tax revenue. the assessed value is about 10% of that. And then the levy
right.
is.
The tax
so
amount.
It wouldn't be $1 billion
created
in ad
from-
valorem.
yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, created from $1 billion in ad valorem tax value.
You
So,
ready to make your common sense motion again?
I'll save it for the work session.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Seeing none, we'll close public comment and move on to administrative business.
The only thing I wanted to bring up for administrative business was that it was EMS week, and I think
Okay.
there's
And I'll
EMS
read the
director.
proclamation.
Yeah.
This is a EMS, Emergency Medical Service Week proclamation. It's to designate the week of May 19th through the 25th, 2019 as Emergency Medical Services Week. Whereas emergency medical service is a vital public service, and whereas the members of emergency medical service teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And as whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury. And whereas emergency medical service has grown to fill a gap by providing important out-of-hospital care, including preventative medicine, follow-up care, and access to telemedicine. And whereas the emergency medical service system consists of first responders, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, emergency medical dispatchers, firefighters, police officers, educators, administrators, and other out-of-hospital medical care providers. And whereas the members of an emergency medical services team, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training, continuing education, and enhance their life-saving skills. And as whereas appropriate to recognize the value and the accomplishments of emergency medical service providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week, now therefore, in recognition of this event, do hereby proclaim the week of May 19th through the 25th, 2019, as Emergency Medical Services Week. And we should,
It's a lot of whereas's.
it is, but like I said, we need to remember these folks. They provide a very good service. You need to remember them every day when you have your moment of silence. Any other administrative business this time?
That was it today.
Okay. Then we'll move on to the consent agenda. Commissioners had a chance to look at everything on the consent agenda.
Yep.
Any questions or concerns? I entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the consent agenda items? None? Voting?
Aye.
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 All right, motion carried. And we're ready to appoint a Stranger Township trustee. We had a Stranger Township board member move out of the county, and we have one person has applied for that position. It's Mr. Anthony DiStefano. He lives on 179th Street in Stranger Township. I've known the family's been around forever. He'd be second, third generation. I haven't had a chance to speak with him, but I just appreciate that he's had an opportunity to, or he's willing to serve.
So you'd put him on the top of the stack of applicants?
Yes, sir.
Is what you're saying?
Yes, sir. Out of all the people, of applications, he was at the top of my list. So, wasn't sure if you need any qualifications.
Whose
Commissioner
district is
Johnson.
that, man?
Stranger,
Is that
my district.
yours? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then you should make the motion.
Well, but I was
That's where I was at with that. He always does that.
kind of going to have to depend on somebody else.
Let me
to
see
do
the
it.
name again.
Mr. Anthony DiStefano.
Okay. Motion to approve Mr. Anthony DiStefano as the Stranger Township trustee until January of 2021.
Have a motion to have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the Stranger Township trustee appointment?
So that's just to fill out the existing
Yeah,
terms?
we'll have to run at the election.
Okay.
Okay. For the record, Commissioner Stevens is present now.
Sorry, trains break down.
Did you hear the
Did you?
motion?
What I have is an appointment for a Stranger Township trustee.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second for Mr. Anthony DiStefano. Any questions?
And have you visited with them?
I have not, but I do know the family, know him. He's
Okay.
been, the family's lived over in that area for as long as I can remember. So,
Very good.
voting?
Aye.
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 All right. All right. We'll move on to the adoption of the Planning Commission resolution. Anybody have any questions on that resolution?
Question I would have is for Mr. Van Paris, what type of feedback, if any, was provided from Planning and Zoning when you met with them last week in regards to these proposed changes?
Commissioner Shemke, members of the commission, I did attend last Wednesday's Planning Commission meeting and did address specifically the proposed resolution with the membership of the board, provided them each a copy. I'm not aware of any feedback being given to Mr. Joseph. I can't speak for him. I've received no feedback from any of the members of the Planning Commission. I will state that the Planning Commission, as always, was very professional in their consideration of these matters. I think they fully understand that due to the expansion of the county commission, that some change to the procedure by which appointments are made to the Planning Commission was necessary. I did also cover the other aspects, such as that all the terms would begin on July 1, that there were going to be certain limitations, for example, no more than 2 members from any one district, that by and large the remainder of the operation of the Planning Commission would remain as it was. Again, the Planning Commission heard it, I think, very carefully and very professionally. I did not, to use the old common law phrase, I did not hear a hue and cry, nor did they applaud me when I finished, Commissioner. I think they serve in a very important capacity. I think they take it seriously, and I think they acknowledge that this board had some policy decisions to make, and you're proceeding to make them.
Anything you'd add, Mr. Joseph?
Good morning, Commissioners. We did provide them with the application, and 2 of the planning commissioners submitted their applications to us so far.
Commissioner Shimke, members of the commission, I apologize. I did bring to their attention that there would be a deadline at some point announced when applications would be cut off, and did encourage them each to submit an application. And again, Mr. Joseph and his staff made sure they had those.
Did we haven't established a deadline yet, though?
No. Well, there's a proposed resolution, but as of last Wednesday, I did not tell them there was a firm date. I simply suggested that sooner rather than later would be a good guideline.
That probably brings up a good point. Within this resolution, there are 2 deadlines listed, one for the nomination and one for application. So I think they're both the same, but
You're referring to the May 28th?
May 28th. So if the commission is okay with May 28th, that's fine. If not, we need to know now before we approve the resolution. I think what we asked the current planning and zoning commissioners to have their applications turned in by the 24th so we could put them out to you for review.
The only discussion I wanted to have is, I want to make sure that the members of the planning board know the only reason we're doing this is because we went to 5 commission districts. Sometimes being on that planning board is a thankless job, and I want to make sure they know that we really appreciate all of them and the job they do. And it's going to be very difficult to narrow this down. I was hoping we could come up with a consensus on how we wanted to do that, because we don't want them to feel by the narrowing down or the application process that we don't appreciate them. I got 2 great guys in my district, but I can only pick one. So I talked to both of them. They both, I was hoping maybe by attrition, they would solve the issue on their own, but they both very much adamantly want to stay on the board. They both do a great job, so my job's going to be hard figuring out which one am I going to appoint and which one am I going to throw into the kitty for the board to vote on. So
Same here.
I don't know how to do that exactly. I don't know if it's, I was probably just going to go by who was hired first hired, last fired, or something like that. It might work itself out because, there's only the same number on there now that we're going to end up with. So if all things being equal, we could just appoint all the same people back. But I think there has been mentioned there wants to be 1 or 2 changes. So I think it's not going to be exactly like it was before. So
Well, I have 3 right now.
yeah,
So I'm going to be down to 2.
yeah, so that's one of the changes that has to take place. So I'm open for suggestions on how to pick one over the other one.
I know one of the issues is that only 4, is correct, only 4 of them can live in the city limits?
Yes.
And that's another issue on top of the,
I don't think 4 now live in their city though, do they?
3.
3 now live in the city. But depending on who we want to appoint,
Right.
that might be an issue also.
I don't know, if we decide who our appointments are, and then we see how many are in the cities
Yeah.
at that point.
So I wanted to make sure that they knew the application process is partly to help us pick the at-large ones. So it's not saying, we don't appreciate you. We're saying, hey, we're going to have to get some information together so that the other commissioners that aren't familiar with you can get to know those people.
Jeff, I don't know that I would recommend anything other than tenure. I mean, that seems like that would be as straightforward and as fair as one could be in that process. I mean, that would be my only comments.
That's what I was thinking. Which I don't even know which one's been there longer out of the 2, but that's the process I was going to use.
We'll provide all that information to you.
Everybody agree with Mr. Shimke?
Yeah, it was Chad's idea.
Look
You
at
got
all
that,
the
John?
support.
You got that, John?
Well, what would you do if it was in employees? You had to do a reduction in force on employees, that's how it'd be handled, wouldn't it? What's that?
I think that it also depends on, even taking into account, by my understanding, it's a very active board that's well engaged, but just at looking at things for future reference, if somebody misses more meetings than someone else,
Oh, yeah.
Even if they've been on
Sure.
longer, you also need to consider, and then I think that you also have to look at what do they bring to the planning board as far as, experience, skills. So sometimes you might have somebody that comes, when you have to make decisions about individuals that might be let go, it's not always based on tenure. Sometimes it needs to be based on what is in the best interest of the organization as well, so.
Yeah, I think without reviewing the applications, we're
Right.
all going with the
Right.
idea that they're qualified, that's why they're there. And if they've all expressed interest that they want to continue, and Mr. Joseph or any of the rest of the staff doesn't have any concerns with their performance, we're
Oh,
somewhat
I agree.
limited.
I agree.
As far
I'm
as
just
options.
saying that, you know, that's in this situation, but
Right.
we could be faced with a similar situation down the road, so.
I'm excited about the Tonganoxie Linwood area having some more representation on the planning commission. That's-
You have one now?
Yeah, well, I guess, I don't know, David Clark.
Two.
He's in mine.
Yeah. Mr. Fox.
Mr. Fox goes about as far as you can go south.
Yeah.
Now
to the
getting
river.
wet. But, yeah, okay. But what we're here to vote on today would be the resolution.
Resolution.
If anybody had any questions on anything in the resolution, Mr. Lofty's pointed out the May 28th would be about the only thing that would be any concern with any board members. 24th would be the current board members' application due date. So,
You ready for a motion?
yes, sir.
I make a motion that we approve Resolution 2019-12.
Second.
Have a motion to approve Resolution 2019-12 and a second. Do we have any further discussion?
I just think this is a culmination of the fact that we changed the county commission to 5 members, and this is one of the results of that, and I think it could be a really positive thing.
Okay. Any other discussion? And voting?
Aye.
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 Okay. Yeah, we'll move on to the National Association of Counties membership. Did everyone get a chance to look at the fee involved with that?
I saw the fee. One of the things we had discussed was having a better understanding of all the services and impact. I mean, it sounds like there's great benefit to county members, but I don't know if either I missed it or, I know we had some dialogue as far as, again, peer counties that participate, having a better understanding of the benefit packages, and maybe I missed it, so that's also possible.
Yeah, and I think in the work session, I was thinking if we approve this, I'd like to do some sort of informational dump to the public, because it's not just county employees, just residents.
Prescription drug discounts, stuff
Right.
like that.
Yeah, residents of the county benefit from this. And so I was thinking we try this out for a year, see if, residents are getting our money's worth and see how it goes.
Or get some feedback from residents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They have a really good website, just for people to be able to go and look at and to obtain information. There's a tremendous amount of information on their website to garner the benefits membership.
Any other questions on NACO? Then I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve membership to the National Association of Counties, that's it, National Association of Counties in the amount of $1,525 per year.
Have a motion, have a second?
Second.
Okay, have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the National Association of Counties membership? Have none, voting?
Aye.
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 And somebody will contact somebody at the Kansas Association of Counties, correct, about this? That's who you contact?
No,
Somebody
this
to
is the National
I know,
Association.
but I think somebody through KAC does the membership stuff.
The invoice that we received came directly from NACO. We'll just
Okay.
pay that invoice to them.
Okay,
That's who, when you go to their website, that's who it has you contact.
okay.
And then they calculate it based on population.
Mhm.
So we'll just submit this invoice down to the clerk's office for payment.
Okay.
Once it's paid, it'll go to the National Association of Counties, and they'll be notified that we're members. And I can notify the representative for Kansas if you'd like, just let him know.
Okay.
The gentleman out of
Yeah,
Jefferson County.
Richard Malm from Jefferson County?
Yep.
Okay.
Say that's our primary point of contact then?
Yeah, he's the president.
He's the local, yeah, he's representative for Kansas. Our primary point of contact, I mean, I think you go directly to NACO. He's kind of the recruiting officer for Kansas. He goes out and pitches the product that they promote, and he came over and gave a presentation to the Board of County Commissioners and asked us to join. But they do have a lot of information on their website. There are benefits
do.
to both the county as an organization and the county as its citizens as well.
The only challenge is getting people to go to it, right? So pull rather than push, and I agree with you, Jeff. If we can rely on this point of contact to help us build that data.
They said they would
that we'd like to
provide
share.
us, when I contacted them, they said they would provide us with kind of promotional items that we could
Okay,
put out, some
great.
posters and stuff, and we can start putting that out on Facebook, on our website. Obviously, commissioners, if you'd like to share it on your Facebook or social media feeds, that would help as well.
He'll be calling me after the meeting to find out what we did, so I'll have him give you a call,
Okay.
Mark.
Okay.
We can get their templates or whatever they have.
Yeah, I think that comes from the national organization, according to the conversation I had with.
All right. So we're ready for local service road policy. Commissioners had a chance to look over that policy.
Yes, sir.
I think this was kicked off as part of a work session. We had a very lengthy discussion on it. Staff has tried to put onto paper the direction that came out of that work session. And we did identify afterwards maybe one or two other items that we thought were probably consistent with this policy that should be spelled out in this policy as well. And Mr. Spickelmeyer's here to cover any questions you might have.
Any questions of Mr. Spickelmeyer? I'll move on down to 4 on minimum maintenance roadways. We've allowed some building permits to be issued on minimum maintenance roadways. I see we're addressing that. And it says, road may be bladed upon request of adjacent landowners, not to exceed 2 times a year.
I think that is the current policy as
Right.
well.
This does not include snow removal.
I think that's one of the things that people need to understand, and the reason we felt it was important to address that here is, one, because that question does come up occasionally, but two, those extensions that we allowed for under Section 3 create a minimally maintained road, and therefore we needed to be able to make sure it was addressed, because we're making those people improve their road, and we think it was consistent if somebody wants to build on a currently labeled minimally maintained road, they would need to bring that roadway surface to their driveway point up to the standards currently in place.
How do we deal with the ones that are already on?
Pre-existing,
So if they needed a load of rock, they'd have to pay for it?
well, I think that's the ongoing maintenance section. I mean, once we ask them to bring it up to the current standards. Again, under the current policy and under this policy, we would go out and twice a year, we would blade those roads. I think according to statute, there's limitations on what can be considered minimally maintained.
Right.
And as traffic counts go up on those roads, they would have to be transitioned from a minimally maintained road to a then maintained road by the county, just a low-volume local road.
Okay, so, hate to pick a road, but we'll pick a road that goes through to another road, it's a minimum maintenance, and there's been some building permits issued on it. It won't take long for the traffic count to get up to where it would not be a minimum maintenance road, correct?
If, if building permits continue to be issued on a minimum maintenance road, then yes, eventually you would anticipate that it would. And then I guess we find ourselves in the situation where if, under this policy, they would then, before they get their building permit, essentially they should
Bring the road up.
bring the road up to our
low
current
volume,
maintenance.
yeah, the low volume road standard, which then would allow us to maintain it going forward, especially on a through road if the traffic count, which I suspect the two that I can think of that have occurred in the last couple of years would, because they are through roads and because of their location and the houses they're going up in those areas, I would guess that the traffic count's probably going to reach that point soon anyways.
And it'd be the property owner's responsibility to bring it up to,
To the low volume road standards at that time. Is that correct, Mike?
Yeah.
But on a through road, you've got existing already, and saying that the next person comes in, how are they gonna make that fair?
Well, I don't know, I don't want to say it's not about being fair, but it's about you're building on a road that you understand the limitations of that road when you decide to build there. If you want to build there and the road is not to standard, you understand you have to bring it up to standard. Just like the folks under 3, we're requiring them to extend the road to their property, the necessary frontage of whatever, just depending on lot size. In this case, yes, there might be some people who are already on that road and they come before you, but if you want to build on that road, you got to bring the road up to standards.
I mean, I don't have a problem with that personally. I mean, it's just, to me, it's, buyer beware or builder beware or whatever. There are, there are responsibilities that come along with decisions that we make as to where we want to purchase property or build a home. And just because there's existing houses there now, that doesn't change the fact that there are requirements. When you make that decision, you can say, well, I'm not going to build there. I'm going to go someplace else where it's not required of me, so.
There are 400 miles of gravel road and I don't know how many miles of hard surface road that are out there available for development. So these, and we don't have a lot of low or minimally maintained roads. We have, when you look at it as a percentage of our whole network. So I think that's one of the things that we took into consideration when we came up with this. But there either needs to be no building on minimally maintained roads, or there needs to be a process of if they are going to build on the minimally maintained roads, and we're just looking for guidance from the commission, so.
does anyone in the audience have anything to add?
Come on up, Joe.
But I think I'd also like to make a couple points. We are going to go through a process where we designate officially the minimum maintenance roads under the statutory guidelines. So you will see this minimum maintenance, the actual roadways, and that does require us to put up a sign that says, as indicated in the policy, and that sign language was developed out of the Kansas statute, so we're going to comply with the Kansas statute when we do so. I think the nice thing about a sign is it alerts the traveling public as well as any potential future purchasers that they should question any comments that they may have gotten about the status of that road.
Yeah, I think one of the roads that just recently came up, I'm sorry, Joe, I'm not taking your time. Okay. That recently came up is there is a house already on that road, and they did improve the road to their driveway. Now, the next person came in and put in a barn, and then later came back and added a residential portion to that barn. And they want us to move the sign past their driveway so that people don't think that it's a minimally maintained road, but they don't want to do the improvement. And I think that's where we're trying to get some guidance here, is at what point do you want the county to step in and take these roads over? At what point do you want us to say, no, you can't build on these, just they're farm structures only? So that's kind of where this came from.
Yeah, and Mike actually answered one of the questions, so, but I know when we talked about this previously and designed it to a minimum standard, when it says in here to current road standards, are we talking going chip and seal, or is it still a gravel?
No, it would just be low volume road standards.
Low volume road standards, okay.
And we do intend to we realize that we need to get our road standards. The last time we adopted one was 2003, and it's definitely time to get these things ironed out.
I remember the conversation that we were discussing, something spending like $50,000 on the road up north, off of Millwood Road, to reopen that road. And, you know, I drove the road, it doesn't seem like, if we spent that much money up there, something happened. But I know it was a challenge, so, you know, having the standards, I think, is a great thing, so there's some sort of guidance. And my main question was, I didn't understand if are we talking minimum maintenance all the way to chip and seal already, or we're gonna go gravel, so that was my main question. Thank you.
Thank you.
I also want the board to realize that, as with any policy, it is subject to periodic revision. And there are other things that we're discussing currently on other things that come up before the board, so that we can incorporate these or modify these as the situations develop and as we have a better understanding of the impact.
Thank you.
Mr. Berry?
Glenberry District 1. Listen to the conversation here. The only thing I see as a problem is if you're the first person on this minimally maintained road and you put a house on it, and they make you bring it up to standard of what the current standard is, they make you improve that road to that. Now you've opened the door for the guy that lives across the street from you to build a house, and he doesn't have to bring up nothing. That guy that wants to come in second is going to get over, and the guy who did the first deal, he thinks, well, surely they will reimburse me for part of that, because I have a vested interest in that road. I put it in. I had to bring it up to standard. And the guy that puts it on a little further past him, he should have to bring that road up to standard before he builds his house, so that he doesn't come in there at the end of the day and say, well, I got a decent road to my neighbors. My 300 foot past him, I don't want to improve it. And what are you doing after the fact, is what I'm saying. Because the guy that put it in to get to his driveway, he's thinking, well, he made me bring it up to snuff to build my house. That guy should have to do the same thing to build his house.
Maybe we could address that in the RIF and TIF policy to reimburse.
And that's devil's advocate. I got no vested interest in it. I ain't building no house to nowhere. I just sitting here listening to that, and I thought, I got people having some comments about that. If I paid to have that done, and then my neighbor doesn't have to pay anything,
Yeah.
he's got a pretty good deal.
And this is coming up in the conversation I'm having with people wanting to get in on the chip and seal program. The front people, how much money are they going to put in, and then the people in the back, not necessarily across the road, but further back.
Right.
You know, how do you divide up the prorated share? So maybe this is something we need to address in the RIF and TIF, make a new.
Yep.
I think the challenge here, I think you guys are really hitting on a lot of the challenges we had and discussions we had when we went through this, but the challenge here is the person who owns the property across the road at the time has no desire to improve the road. They're
Right.
fine with and the thing with the chip seal that you bring up with the dust abatement program, same thing is true. Now, once it's closer to my house, I may decide I want to go ahead, but I don't need to pay for the road leading up there because you live there.
Exactly.
And you may have that not all your neighbors want that road improved. Some
Yeah.
of them prefer the farm road status, the low maintenance volume, so that there's not traffic coming through.
So I'm thinking.
So it's just a risk that you take, and when you develop and build your home, it's something you have to consider the way it's worded now. If the commission has a different way they'd like for us to address it, certainly, that's a
Yeah.
policy decision.
They're less than 50 miles of minimum
Right.
maintenance roads right now, I believe.
That sounds about right, Commissioner. We're in the process of identifying them so that we can present an inventory, and that also gives us the statutory authority to put up the correct signs. So that's what we will have that before you here in the next couple months.
But then this really doesn't address one that's just got road right away, really, when you're talking about.
Platted right away, you mean?
Yeah.
Not physically there. Right. And there's a lot of that.
From the 1800s.
I think that's addressed in the section 3, though.
Well,
That's
yeah, it
opening a
is.
new road or extending a road. There's a road there. It's not much of a road. you want to build a house on it, you need to bring it up to the standards, or do you not want us, or should we not allow houses to be built on there? Or is there just an assumption from the board that after we get to a certain point where there's 2, 3 houses on there, the county's going to come in and improve that road at our expense? And that's where we're looking for direction today.
Well, I think this goes back to the policy of one, identifying the roads. If there's a matrix or something we can work from that helps to provide not only the categories, but those traffic counts that are supported within those categories, and then understanding as a home builder that, again, where I currently fall into this chart today may not be the case 1 year from now or 5 years from now, and that's a risk I'm willing to take because I didn't
Right.
choose the roads we already know, so.
So what we need to do is establish the magic number, traffic count from minimum maintenance to a regular low-volume road.
That actually statutes, I believe,
I'd say my guess is we don't have to create that. It
the
probably is.
statutes actually have that number in there
And I'll do the research, and that'll come forward to the board when we actually go through the
when
process.
we
of-
start labeling them as minimally
I
maintained.
wonder how old that statute is.
I would say that there's probably not many roads, through roads in the county that don't reach that threshold currently,
I'm
because the
almost
population
positive
growth.
we were already there.
So
On
that's
the
a,
two
you
that I'm
know,
thinking about.
a western Kansas roads, there's probably half the county in some of those. I think we identified earlier, there's a county with only 1.5 miles of maintained road. But here, I would guess that through roads, it's going to be a challenge for us to keep them labeled as minimally maintained.
What I'm trying to figure out, does this say, and are we on the same page with, say somebody has an 80-acre tract, so you have 2,640 feet down one side, and there's a platted road back from when Jesus was a little baby, but it's not physically there. So the guy comes in and wants to build on it. Are we requiring him to just put in 300 feet of that platted road? Whatever the minimum lot is, I think it's 300 feet on non-platted lot in it. Are we requiring him to just put in 300 feet, or are we going to make him put in the
Half-mile road
2,640
for
feet
somebody else.
when he's only going to use the first
300
300 feet?
I think as was discussed in the work session and per the policy, this is just whatever's required by the subdivision guidelines,
That's
which
what
would be
that means,
the
right?
300 feet
Okay.
or the 200 feet, depending upon lot size.
Okay. I thought that's what this was saying, but I just want to make
Yes.
sure.
Now, that has to
That was the
obviously
direction
get,
that we got in the work session.
that has to get to their driveway, obviously. So
Yeah.
they would have to agree that their driveway is going to be within that, and if they want their driveway further back, then they'll have to
Okay.
extend it. That's the minimum. They have to do at least 300. If they want that driveway back 600, then they're going to have to go to the driveway at least, obviously.
And if we're doing that, I wanted to take it one step further and maybe work with planning, zoning, and the zoning board for, say, new plats. You know, a lot of these new plats that are coming in with a dedicated right-of-way on a grid line. So planning, zoning wants those to be through streets. They don't want them to be dead-end cul-de-sacs. So maybe by adopting this policy, we can also address new plats and say, we can make that a cul-de-sac dead end for now, but we're going to go ahead and dedicate right-of-way all the way through for utility assets or whatever, but most importantly for future road right-of-way, so that it's already dedicated and it becomes like one of these old platted roads that aren't physically there right now. But then it could be a through road because people like living on cul-de-sacs. And if you want to develop the subdivision with a cul-de-sac first, but then it can later be dedicated as a through road. So I wanted to see if that was plausible also.
I think that would be a different discussion than this
Right.
policy.
Right.
Um,
But see what I'm saying? This lays the groundwork for that.
There are some there are some challenges to what you just brought up, but yes, I think
Right.
different policy than this.
As long as we're on the
Sometimes
same
there's a house
page.
built at the very end of that cul-de-sac. So
Yeah,
really
well,
you can't-
but in the plat, that's what you would do, make sure a
Right.
house doesn't get built in the way. That's what I'm saying. You would actually go ahead and
Establish no build
draw.
zone and then future
Exactly.
right of way. You don't want to
Yeah,
give
to
the
stop what
right of
Vicki
way
said.
at this time, would you?
Right. To stop what Vicki's
Because then
saying,
it
somebody
becomes
building a
public,
house in the way.
public right of way and anybody can use it even though
Right, yeah. Okay, I just want to make sure we're saying
it's.
the same
Okay,
thing.
we're on the same page here.
Okay.
You and I. anyway. Any more discussion on this local service policy? Mr. Stevens, you got any questions on this? You've been kind of
No, I
quiet
mean-
over there.
I'm just getting my bearings this morning.
Okay.
I think this reflects a lot of what we talked about at the work session. You know,
Oh, yeah.
It's, and I support it fully.
Okay,
Need a motion?
is that your motion?
Sure. Let's see, where's the?
Your motion be to adopt.
I
the
move that we adopt the policy on local service roads as proposed.
Proposed revision? Second?
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Voting?
Aye.
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 Aye. You gotta sign that.
Yes. Awesome.
Well, I have one question for you, since you're up here. Where are we at on the letting of the contracts and the phases that we adopted, and where's that at as far as construction beginning?
Dust abatement.
The next group of dust abatement projects is scheduled to be open this Thursday at 10:30 a.m. That would be Phase 2. We are proceeding with Phase 1. And Phase 3 is then scheduled to be open the week following. So we anticipate that we should start seeing some activity shortly.
And you've issued the notice to proceed on one, correct?
And that indicates we have to start within 14 days? Is that?
I don't know.
Is that what it?
What deadline do you?
Well,
need to notice?
the contractor has some discretion,
Okay.
but they are, it gets them their sales tax exemption and the things like they need to do their
Okay.
do their work.
I was just reading that. Something about.
And then just on another update, we did issue E58. We talk about that, or
Sure, go ahead.
E58, we did issue a RFP.
Millwood Road Bridge.
The Millwood Road
Yeah,
Bridge.
there we go.
Yes, we did issue the RFPs to get that process started, so we expect to have something shortly, and then we can convene a selection committee to make that determination so we can continue this process moving forward. We understand that it's critical.
And the commissioner usually sits on the selection committee?
In the past, that has been the practice, but I will defer to however everybody wants to do it.
I think that there's a policy on it. We'll follow the policy.
Okay.
And obviously, we will, because of the interest in this project, we will keep the entire commission engaged in the process.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
We have anything else for the board, Mr. Lawford?
Not on the regular agenda.
Okay. All right, well, we adjourn.
Before we adjourn, I want to say that I want to recognize our county employees for participating in the countywide baby shower that was hosted by the county attorney's office in Cushing St. Luke's Hospital over the weekend. It was a great idea and something that I would say needs to be an annual event.
Probably will be now.
I hope so. I really hope so. It was really cool. And also, there was a behavior health fair that was hosted by the Deltas, which is the primarily African-American female sorority in the Leavenworth County area. And it was a really nice event. I think that someone said they saw the video, part of the video of it that was put up on Facebook. But it was a really good event, and it's something that I think that we need to support since we're working on mental health in the community. So that's.
That was me.
Oh, it was you. And then this weekend, coming up, there's a Unity in the Community event going to be held Saturday evening at 4 o'clock, which is a Leavenworth Youth, kind of like, they have a talent show. And I was asked.
Where's this at?
It's at Haymarket Square
Oh, okay.
here in Leavenworth. I was just asked this morning via email to be one of the judges for it, but
When is it?
it's Saturday at 4 p.m. There'll be hot dogs and,
Okay.
but a really nice,
In good weather?
it's underneath the Haymarket, the shelter at Haymarket Square, so I would say that it's rain or shine, they're gonna have the
Okay.
event, so
All right.
and encourage people to attend that as well.
Okay. Mr. Culberson, you got any?
Nothing big.
Nothing big? Okay. Well, all I did was go to the Bayshore City Council work session on Wednesday night, and Commissioner Shimke and myself attended the LCDC meeting in Tonganoxie. And that's all I got to say about that.
I attended the city commission meeting last Tuesday evening, and the three of us, Mr. Steven can talk about that, went to the Garrison's.
Yeah.
Oh,
State of the Fort Leavenworth
We
luncheon.
went, yeah, it was really neat. I attended the Linwood City Council meeting on Tuesday. They continue to discuss their possible intergovernment agreement on code enforcement, and also the concern about the quarry. On Wednesday, I met with a citizen about a right-of-way issue, and then we met with county staff about that, and that was, I believe it's being resolved. And also, and then on Friday, we went to the State of the Garrison event, and that was really, really nice. And I enjoyed that a lot, and good food too. And also on Friday, attended the Tonganoxie Business Association meeting in the morning, and gave them a report of what we did with County Road 1. And some of those issues. I also visited with Mr. Steve Jack from the LCDC, and I'm going to be meeting with him, discuss the conflicting numbers as far as the jobs, getting one report, this number of jobs, and then from him another report. So we have to kind of come to a conclusion on that, and I think that's something that I visited with him about. We're not getting sideways with them. We just want to be informed and keep the communication open. And it's kind of like an accountability structure that we build between the organizations. And he was very open to that.
And you should have came to the Thursday meeting because the communication was very open.
Yep. But
Kind of like an Eastern City Hall meeting.
we're going to a fence viewing next week
Yay!
All right. Okay.
on Wednesday.
Wear your boots.
Okay.
Spray your
Anything else? Commissioners have anything else before we adjourn and go to our work session?
When do you want to start the work session?
Sooner than later?
15-minute break.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
15?
Motion to
Does that
adjourn.
work for everybody?
We're here.
Yeah.
Works for me.
Motion to adjourn?
And then.
Second.
All right. Aye, aye.
Aye.
Aye, aye.
All right.